The alien fleet moved silently through human space, its massive ships glinting in the faint light of distant stars. They had planned this operation carefully, confident that humans were easy prey. Thousands of humans from scattered colonies were rounded up, herded into transport vessels and shackled. The aliens spoke to each other in sharp, harsh tones, laughing at what they thought would be their simple victory. Among the captives, Jonathan Hale walked calmly, his hands bound but his eyes sharp. Beside him, Emma Clark adjusted the small restraints on her wrists, scanning the surrounding area. David Mercer, always alert, observed the guards and the layout of the cell blocks. Unlike the aliens, the humans did not panic. They had been trained for emergencies, for situations worse than this. Their minds were already racing, finding possibilities where others saw only despair. The cells were small, too small for comfort. Hundreds of humans were packed tightly together, some sitting, some standing, and some pacing. The air smelled faintly of recycled oxygen and fear, though most captives masked their anxiety well. Children clung to parents, and the elderly held their heads high despite the uncertainty. The aliens, seeing only shuffling captives, assumed this fear was proof of their dominance. Guards strutted along the narrow walkways, their boots clanging against the metal floors. They taunted the prisoners, throwing words that were meant to humiliate. "Soon your screams will be music to us," one growled. Another sneered, "Enjoy your cages while you can, humans. You will be forgotten in days." The captives, however, responded only with silence. Even in captivity, the humans refused to give their enemies satisfaction. Jonathan crouched by a corner, whispering to Emma. "They think we are weak," he said, his voice calm. "They think we will break. They will learn soon enough." Emma nodded slightly. "Patience," she replied. "We wait, we observe, and we act when the time is right. They do not see us clearly yet." David, standing near a barred window, studied the alien patterns. Patrol schedules, door locks, security feeds, all of it was visible to a trained eye. He traced paths with his finger in the air, imagining routes and weaknesses. "Every system has a flaw," he muttered. "We just need to find it." The aliens did not understand this quiet, this patience. They saw only hands bound, bodies confined, and assumed fear and submission. Yet in those very eyes they considered meek, sparks of defiance burned. Quietly, subtly, humans observed everything. They noted the number of guards, the times they changed shifts, and the way the alien machinery worked. Every detail would matter later. Among the prisoners, a murmur began to rise, not of fear but of communication. Humans were adept at sharing information without alerting their captors. A small nod here, a gesture there, words whispered under the breath. The aliens paid no attention. They were too sure of themselves, too certain that humans were now powerless. In the corner of one cell, a young man named Thomas Whitaker studied the airlock controls from afar. With nothing but careful observation and memory, he had already begun to understand the basic functions of the ship's doors. A slight movement of his fingers would later be enough to start a chain of events that no alien could predict. Nearby, Maria Bennett quietly tied a makeshift cord from a broken strap. It was small, almost invisible, but it could serve as a tool. She smiled faintly, not out of joy, but from the anticipation of using human ingenuity to overcome impossible odds. The captors thought these were idle actions, meaningless gestures by frightened beings. Jonathan walked among the prisoners, his calm presence a shield for morale. "We survive first with our minds," he reminded them softly. "Do not give them reason to underestimate you. Observe. Learn. Remember. Everything counts." The aliens continued their routine, unaware of the quiet planning unfolding under their noses. They laughed among themselves, mocked the humans, and strutted through corridors thinking themselves masters. Every confident step, every sneer, every careless gesture was noted by human eyes and minds alike. By the time the aliens decided to rest, the prisoners were quietly connected by understanding. Each human knew without words that they were not beaten. They were waiting. Waiting for the right moment to show that strength is more than physical, that patience and intelligence could turn despair into power. Jonathan, standing once again by Emma and David, looked out through the small window of their cell. The stars stretched infinitely beyond, but the human spirit was already reaching for them. "They do not see us yet," he said. "But soon they will." Even as the aliens laughed and assumed victory, the seeds of resistance were planted. In every cell, in every mind, a plan began to form. Humans, once captured, were not prisoners. They were observers, strategists, and soon they would be the ones in control. The fleet moved forward through space, the aliens confident of their conquest. But aboard the ships, among the shackled humans, The truth remained unseen. Those they thought were weak were already learning. Those they thought defeated were already planning. And when the time came, the humans would remind the galaxy why they were never to be underestimated. Inside the cramped, dimly lit cells, the humans moved quietly, observing, listening, and learning. Even in chains, their minds were free. Whispers passed from one prisoner to another, sharing small ideas, observations, and patterns. Every step of the alien guards was noted, every beep of the ship's systems recorded in memory. Emma Clark crouched near the control panel of their cell block. Though her restraints limited her movements, she managed to use a small metal fragment to glance at the ship's wiring through a vent. The aliens had designed the system for efficiency, not security, and Emma's sharp eyes immediately noticed the weaknesses. A few access panels that were poorly secured, a blind spot in the surveillance grid, and circuits that could be disrupted without triggering alarms. She made mental notes, planning how these tiny flaws could later turn into critical advantages. David Mercer moved among the other prisoners, quietly assigning small tasks. One group memorized patrol schedules, another practiced subtle ways to jam door locks, and a third learned how to communicate silently using simple signals. Every human understood that patience was their weapon. There would be no reckless attacks, no sudden uprisings. They were observing, waiting, and preparing. The aliens, confident in their superiority, strolled through the corridors with their usual arrogance. One commander bent down to tap a prisoner on the shoulder. "Is this all you can do, humans?" he sneered. "Try harder." The human in question only looked at him calmly, refusing to react. The alien laughed, assuming that compliance and silence meant weakness. They could not see the subtle coordination happening beneath their noses. In one corner, Jonathan Hale whispered to a small group. "Every move we make now matters. They think small disturbances are harmless. They're wrong. Every detail we learn will guide our freedom." His voice carried calm authority, steady and unwavering. The prisoners listened carefully, understanding that leadership was more than giving orders. It was teaching patience, discipline, and strategy. Small acts of defiance began to appear. A tool hidden beneath a blanket. A wire slightly cut in a system panel. The aliens noticed minor glitches, but their overconfidence blinded them. "Humans are clever," one commander said to another, "but harmless." They had no idea that cleverness combined with patience could become a force far greater than brute strength. In another cell, Anna Mitchell quietly traced the air ducts, measuring their width and noting how far one could crawl without being seen. A small handhold here, a vent cover there. Each observation seemed insignificant, but collectively they painted a map of escape routes and weak points. She whispered these notes to a fellow prisoner, who memorized them instantly. The captives developed signals to communicate silently. A subtle tap, a tilt of the head, a pattern of breath or eye movement. Each gesture conveyed messages without alerting the aliens. These signals allowed coordination across different cell blocks, enabling humans to work as one even while separated. Jonathan, Emma, and David often gathered in the center of the cell complex, away from prying eyes and shared findings. Every small anomaly, every unnoticed flaw, became part of a growing plan. They had no weapons to speak of, but their greatest tool was the ability to think like the enemy while remaining unseen. Outside, the aliens continued their routines, unaware of the careful observation happening all around them. They assumed that silence and lack of overt resistance equaled submission. In their arrogance, they failed to notice the signs of a rebellion forming quietly, like sparks beneath a layer of ash. Even small prisoners played their part. Children were taught how to pass messages, elders shared wisdom on patience, and all memorized key details about alien systems. Each human understood that this was not just survival, it was preparation for reclaiming control. Jonathan spoke one evening, quietly but firmly, so only the nearby prisoners could hear. "They will underestimate us at every turn. They will think us weak. That is when we strike, not with anger but with precision. Every act now, every detail we record, will become the difference between freedom and continued captivity." Emma looked around at the determined faces of the prisoners. Despite chains, despite fear, there was no despair. Every human carried within them the instinct to survive, adapt, and turn disadvantage into strength. They knew that the aliens' arrogance would be their undoing. David nodded toward the cell's exit, where a few alien guards patrolled lazily. "Observe, wait, learn. Patience is our weapon now," he reminded them. "They do not see it yet, but the day will come when they wish they had." And so, the days passed in quiet, subtle rebellion. The humans were careful not to provoke unnecessary attention, but every moment brought new knowledge, new preparation, and stronger bonds among the prisoners. They moved as one mind, connected not by chains, but by a shared determination to survive and reclaim their freedom. The aliens, confident in their easy victory, failed to notice the most important fact. The humans they had captured were not weak. They were observing. They were learning. And they were waiting for the perfect moment to act. Weeks of quiet observation and careful planning had led the humans to this moment. Inside the massive alien flagship, every prisoner knew their role. They moved with precision, speaking only in whispers and using signals they had practiced for days. Even in chains, their minds were free, and now it was time to act. David Mercer led a small group through the maintenance corridors toward the navigation room. Each step was measured. Guards were patrolling, but they were unaware of the coordinated effort unfolding around them. Every human knew the schedule, every timing rehearsed. A slight pause, a tilt of the head, a tap on the metal wall, they communicated silently. Emma Clark crouched near the communications hub, her fingers moving swiftly over a small control panel she had discovered earlier. She injected false signals into the ship's network, creating confusion among the alien crew. Lights flickered in control rooms far away, alarms sounded briefly, then went silent. To the aliens, it felt like the ship itself was betraying them. Jonathan Hale stood in the central hub of the prisoner section, using hidden signs to direct the actions of the hundreds of humans around him. Every step had been planned, yet flexibility was key. When one alien patrol changed course unexpectedly, Jonathan signaled a small team to intercept and redirect it without alerting others. Calm and patience ruled every action. The first phase was securing engineering and weapons systems. Human teams moved silently through corridors, cutting power to sections the aliens relied on. Within minutes, control panels that had seemed untouchable were in human hands. Alien guards tried to react, but hesitation spread like a virus among them. They were confident, but they were not prepared for opponents who had studied their routines so closely. David's team reached the navigation room. He paused at the door, signaling the others. Using small tools hidden in their clothing, they bypassed the lock systems with surprising ease. Inside, human hands took control of navigation panels, routing the ship away from dangerous sectors and giving them the advantage of movement. The aliens watching from nearby control stations were confused. How had these prisoners infiltrated such critical areas so quickly? Meanwhile, Emma continued her work at communications. She sent false orders and scrambled signals, making alien crews unsure of where to go or whom to follow. Some crew members moved in the wrong direction entirely, bumping into each other in panic. The humans didn't shout, didn't rush. They waited for the right moments to strike, ensuring their control grew steadily. Jonathan watched the progress from the central hub. He gave small hand signals, fist clenched, arm raised, fingers tapping, each conveying instructions without a sound. The humans acted like parts of a single mind, moving in perfect coordination. Every minor victory, every alien they outmaneuvered, strengthened their momentum. Confusion spread among the aliens. Some ran to what they thought were secure areas, only to find humans already controlling the systems. Alarms that should have triggered response teams were being ignored or rerouted. Panic whispered through the ship's corridors, but the humans remained calm, each step deliberate, each move precise. The prisoners in lower decks blocked stairways and access points, silently guiding alien soldiers into controlled traps. They didn't harm them immediately. There was no need. Fear and uncertainty were enough. The aliens were prisoners of their own hubris, assuming the humans were weak and disorganized. Emma hacked further, using the alien network to lock doors in critical areas. Lights flashed and panels blinked as systems that had once been controlled by the aliens now obeyed human commands. David's navigation team redirected the ship's engines subtly, making the vessel more maneuverable and giving them leverage over sections still held by alien crews. Jonathan's calm voice, though not heard aloud, guided every prisoner. They followed signals with discipline, moving as shadows through the corridors. Every human knew their target, every path memorized. There was no chaos in their actions, only methodical, relentless precision. By the time the aliens realized the scale of the rebellion, humans had already taken control of major ship sections. Weapons were ready in human hands, navigation locked, communications under control, and key engineering areas secured. Panic swept through the alien crew. They tried to rally, to regroup, but every attempt was anticipated. Humans had planned for every contingency, and now the prisoners were no longer weak, they were the ship's masters. Small teams moved to secure the remaining guards, tying them quickly and silently. The prisoners worked efficiently, ensuring no unnecessary noise, no reckless confrontations. The alien crew, once arrogant and confident, was now trapped in a web they could not escape. Jonathan watched the ship's main monitor, noting the status of every system. With a subtle nod, he signaled David and Emma. Together, they coordinated the final phase, consolidating control and preparing for a full course toward human space. The humans did not boast. They did not celebrate yet. Their focus remained on precision, on safety, on completing the mission with discipline. The aliens could only watch, stunned and confused. The prisoners they had thought weak and submissive had turned the flagship into a human-controlled vessel. Every strategy the aliens had relied on had been anticipated, every routine turned against them. Silence filled the corridors, broken only by the quiet movements of humans securing the ship. Outside, stars glinted against the vast darkness of space. Inside, control panels flickered under human command, and for the first time the prisoners were no longer captives. They were the masters of the flagship, and the galaxy would soon witness what humanity could do when forced to fight. The final stretch of the operation had arrived. Jonathan Hale signaled his small team, and they moved swiftly through the corridors toward the bridge. Every human knew the stakes. Every step had been planned. Every move counted. The bridge, once thought secure by the aliens, was now their final vulnerability. Guards patrolled, alarms blared, but Emma Clark had already disabled most of the ship's security measures. David Mercer monitored the weapons systems, ensuring that any attempt at resistance would be neutralized immediately. Jonathan led the charge silently. His team split, taking cover behind panels and walls, advancing in perfect synchronization. The alien crew on the bridge stared in disbelief as humans emerged from unexpected corners, precise and coordinated, striking with speed rather than brute force. Prisoners who had been shackled just days before now moved freely, reinforcing their comrades, securing communication lines and blocking alien escape routes. Their numbers seemed to multiply as each section of the ship was cleared. Every alien movement was anticipated, every action countered. Emma tapped into the bridge controls. The ship's systems, once entirely alien, now obeyed human commands. Lights flickered, doors locked, and displays shifted to show data only humans could interpret. The aliens, who had prided themselves on their technological superiority, were disoriented. Their flagship no longer obeyed them. It obeyed the humans who had once been prisoners. David focused on the weapons. Missile systems, turrets, and defense grids were now controlled with precision. He simulated attacks to keep any remaining alien crew in constant stress. Every attempted strike against the humans failed, their own technology turned against them. Jonathan moved to the center of the bridge. His calm, measured presence commanded authority without a word. One by one the aliens surrendered or were quickly restrained. There was no chaos, no unnecessary violence. The human strategy was not to destroy, but to take complete control. Prisoners secured key stations: engineering, navigation, communications, and weapons. Each human worked efficiently, silently, as though the ship itself had become an extension of their own abilities. The aliens watched, stunned, realizing too late that they had underestimated patience, intelligence, and teamwork. The bridge, once filled with confident alien commanders, was now under human control. Screens displayed new coordinates, engines responded to human hands, and communications transmitted messages in human code. The flagship had become a symbol of what humans could accomplish when underestimated and pushed to the edge. Outside, space stretched endlessly. Inside, humans worked with quiet confidence. Jonathan checked the status of the ship, then nodded to Emma and David. Together, they coordinated final security measures, ensuring that every section of the ship was accounted for and that no surprises remained. The aliens on the bridge, once arrogant and sure of their victory, now looked around helplessly. Their plans, their confidence, their superiority, all had been turned into a lesson. They had captured humans thinking it would be simple, but the humans had taken control not through brute strength, but through strategy, patience, and teamwork. Jonathan finally spoke, his voice calm and steady. "The ship is ours. Secure the areas and prepare for the course to home space." There was no shouting, no celebration yet. Order and control came first. Emma guided the flagship, ensuring engines responded smoothly and that the ship moved without resistance. David monitored the weapon systems, prepared to counter any final attempt at rebellion from alien crews still scattered throughout lower decks. Prisoners, now free humans, moved confidently through corridors, checking for threats and securing sections. They worked silently but efficiently. Every alien resistance was neutralized before it could even begin. By the time the flagship was fully under human control, the aliens realized the scale of their mistake. They had underestimated the patience, intelligence, and cunning of humans. They had thought taking prisoners would be enough. They had thought they could control humans. They were wrong. Jonathan, Emma, and David coordinated the remaining operations calmly. Communications were re-established, and the humans on board were organized into teams to maintain order. Every system, every station, every control panel was now secure and operating under human command. Outside the windows, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the struggle inside the flagship. But inside, the humans had turned defeat into victory. They had proven that even when captured, even when outnumbered and restrained, humans could adapt, strategize, and seize control. The alien crew on the bridge had no choice but to comply. Their arrogance had been replaced with a clear understanding. Humans were not only survivors, they were masters when underestimated. Finally, Jonathan Hale stood at the center of the bridge, observing the controlled chaos around him. Calmly, he signaled that the operation was complete. Every system secured. Every alien neutralized or contained. The flagship was now entirely under human control. The aliens would never forget this day. They had captured thousands, but those prisoners had hijacked the ship, turned it against them, and demonstrated the full scope of human ingenuity and patience. Silence fell across the bridge as the humans settled into their new positions. There was no boast, no loud celebration. Their victory was quiet, controlled, and absolute. The flagship, once the pride of the alien fleet, now bore human command. And as they prepared to navigate it back to friendly space, the lesson was clear. Never underestimate humans and never assume patience as weakness. Humanity had won and the galaxy would remember. The flagship moved steadily through the void, guided by human hands that had once been prisoners. Jonathan Hale, Emma Clark, and David Mercer coordinated their teams with calm precision. Every station on the massive vessel was secured, every alien system checked and stabilized. The humans were not celebrating yet, order came first. Outside, stars glimmered coldly, indifferent to the struggle that had taken place inside the ship. But within, humans moved with quiet determination. Prisoners freed from other cells joined the operations, taking up stations, assisting their comrades, and ensuring that no part of the ship remained uncontrolled. Every alien who had once sneered at humanity now realized their mistake. The return to friendly space was not a simple journey. Navigating the alien-built flagship required patience and coordination. David monitored engines, ensuring that every maneuver avoided detection by enemy fleets that might still be tracking them. Emma oversaw communications, broadcasting false signals to confuse any pursuers. Jonathan, at the center, maintained command with quiet authority, his calm presence steadying everyone. As they neared human-controlled space, news began to spread across the galaxy. Other fleets, who had once considered humanity a minor threat, paused and hesitated. Ships turned back, commanders reconsidered their plans, and whispers filled the councils of alien worlds. The humans, even when captured, were not to be underestimated. On board the flagship, humans worked in perfect coordination. Former prisoners helped repair systems sabotaged by alien guards. Teams moved through corridors, securing engineering, navigation, weapons, and communications. The ship had been theirs for weeks, but every moment required vigilance. They could not allow even the smallest error. In the control room, Jonathan spoke softly to Emma and David. They thought taking prisoners would weaken us. They thought they had us cornered. He paused, glancing at the monitors. But we are never truly cornered. Emma nodded. Every step they thought would trap us was part of their undoing. Patience was our greatest weapon. David added, and now the galaxy will remember. Outside the ship, alien fleets hesitated at the borders of human space. No one dared approach too closely. The story of the hijacked flagship spread faster than any message could travel. In every council chamber, across every system, species whispered the lesson. Humans, even when captured, are dangerous, patient, and cunning. The humans did not need to boast. Their actions spoke louder than words. Entire fleets had been disrupted, prisoners had taken control of ships, and alien commanders had learned firsthand that underestimating humanity was a grave mistake. As they entered friendly space, celebrations began quietly among the freed humans. They moved with purpose, securing the ship and ensuring that all systems were fully operational. The flagship, once a symbol of alien power, now belonged to humanity. And in its corridors, every human knew the lesson they had proven. When cornered, humans adapt, overcome, and fight back harder than anyone can imagine. Jonathan Hale finally addressed the gathered humans on the bridge. His voice was calm, measured, but carried the weight of their shared achievement. We have regained control. We have freed our people. And we have shown the galaxy what it means to underestimate humanity. Remember this: we do not boast, we do not threaten. We simply survive, and we act when necessary. Emma Clark checked the navigation systems. The message has reached other sectors, she said. They are watching, waiting, and reconsidering every plan that involves challenging us. David Mercer smiled faintly. They have learned the hard way. The galaxy will think twice before giving humanity a reason to fight again. Outside, the stars continued to shine. Alien ships, once confident and arrogant, retreated silently. Communications were filled with cautious inquiries and hurried orders. The lesson had been learned without a single word of aggression beyond what was necessary. Humanity's cunning, patience, and teamwork had proven unstoppable. The flagship moved toward Earth, carrying not just liberated prisoners, but the story of human ingenuity and resilience. Across the galaxy, reports were filed, warnings were repeated, and every intelligent species understood that humans were not simply survivors. They were strategists, hunters, and masters when pushed. Back on Earth, Jonathan, Emma, and David prepared to debrief the fleet and return their people to safety. No celebration was needed. Their victory was quiet, controlled, and absolute. Every freed human understood the significance of what had been achieved. They had turned capture into victory, weakness into power, and a dire situation into a lesson the galaxy would not forget. The story would echo for generations. Across star systems, in whispers and formal reports alike, the warning became clear. Never underestimate humanity and never give them a reason to fight. For even when restrained, even when outnumbered, humans could seize control, adapt beyond expectation, and act with precision and intelligence that no other species could match. Jonathan looked at the bridge, at the humans moving calmly but efficiently. We've done what we had to do, he said. And they will remember us, not for anger, not for threats, but for what humanity truly is, unstoppable when pushed. Emma and David nodded in agreement. Outside the viewport, the stars awaited, indifferent and endless. Inside, humans had proven their legend once more. The flagship approached Earth, carrying its people home. The galaxy watched, cautious and fearful. The lesson was etched into every mind. Humans, underestimated at your peril, will act with patience, intelligence, and decisive force when given a reason. And when they do, nothing can stand in their way. Quietly, efficiently, humanity returned to its world, leaving a message for all. Do not test them, do not trap them, and do not assume they are weak. They were clever, patient, and unstoppable. And that knowledge alone ensured peace, at least until humanity chose to act again. The lesson was clear. The story would be remembered. The galaxy would never again mistake patience for weakness. And the humans who had been prisoners had become a living testament to strategy, resilience, and the unstoppable spirit of their species.